All right, back on the Young Turks. Now we go from movie reviews to our gaming and tech segment. We're so hip. So we brought in Scott Lowe, editor from IGN. Scott, welcome back.
Thank you for having me back.
All right. Now, we're going to discuss a number of things, including the iPad. First off, I understand Google is actually developing a competitor for iPad. I understand that because I read your article on it.
Well, okay, so essentially what happened, like, since the last time I was here, which was, of course, after CES, Apple kind of stole everybody's thunder by introducing the iPad, which is, of course, the new, like, kind of tablet device. And so it's, making waves, as Apple products tend to do through the tech community. And now Google, who is kind of branching out beyond simply search engines and YouTube, is considering doing a tablet of their own. So they've done stuff in the past with like Android, which is kind of a mobile platform, and they've worked with T-Mobile and companies like that to like get into that realm. Now they're eyeing Apple Apple kind of tablet devices.
First of all, I didn't know this had anything to do with the Android, but the Android is awesome.
Yeah.
Hold on one second.
Sorry.
Okay.
Hold while we turn on the mic. Okay. Later,
I thought it was already on.
Later we will edit that out.
Yes.
Okay, so hold,
All right.
hold.
Okay,
So
let's
Anna,
start
you had a
again.
question.
Yeah.
So-
Okay, so the Android, the mobile phone, is awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
which makes me super optimistic about this whole Google tablet. But I need to know what the differences are. What's the difference between
Bingo.
the Google tablet and the the
Well-
Mac tablet?
Well, kind of the interesting thing, again, is that Google's branched out to simply, because they own, obviously Google, the search engine, and they also they bought YouTube, and they own all of that on the kind of like the web content side. But now they're moving into platforms. So like in the case of Android, they're pretty much creating a new format for cell phones, sort of like how the iPhone has its own kind of proprietary kind of way about it, the way it kind of controls, all that sort of thing. They're doing the same thing with cell phones. They're doing their own thing called Android. And so the tablet stems from this new kind of software they're working for like a web browser, Chrome. And so for part of their Chrome platform for like kind of computer usage, they're kind of thinking about what they can do in terms of hardware. And in the case, this comes in the form of the tablet kind of proposal.
So a couple of quick questions there. One, how do we know which one's better? I have no way of knowing.
Well, that's the thing. The whole news about the Google tablet possibly being a rival to the iPad is that it was posted on a development blog run by Google. So it's basically the tech geeks behind Google, just showing off what they could possibly do with it. So it's not at all confirmed. It's not all going to. We don't know anything about it at this point. It's just sort of like an idea that they're messing around with.
So that's a little schwang, wang, wang.
Yeah.
But I've been hearing about the Android for only 1.5 million years, and where the hell is it?
Well, Android is in the form of a number of different cell phones. Like there's the T-Mobile G1, which was the first Android phone, which is just, again, it's an operating system. So it's sort of like how you have Windows on your computer. It's basically its own operating system for cell phones. And so it exists on a number of different devices now.
And is it good? Is it as good as the iPhone? Or?
Yeah, well, it's kind of cool because it allows you like a whole lot more personalization than you can on the iPhone. It's completely what's referred to as open source, which means people can kind of just do whatever they want with it, whereas the iPhone is really locked. Like you have to be all approved by Apple, and you have to go through all their channels.
Right. Verizon is now offering a lot of phones that offer Android.
Yeah.
The Droid.
Yeah,
is
Motorola
the most
Droid
popular.
is
Yeah.
the most recent.
Ah, the Droid.
The
Droid.
Right.
And you could literally do everything with that Droid. It's amazing, all of the different functions that it has. But look, the one question that I have is, have you heard anything about the pricing of the Google tablet? Because there's a lot of interesting things when it comes to the pricing of the
iPad.
Yeah.
Well,
You almost called it the Maxi phone. Almost. Okay,
Yeah.
and that's the problem with it.
Yeah, definitely an ill-advised naming of a product.
All right.
But the Google tablet, on the other hand, is again, it's a completely just a sort of a concept at this
Right.
point. They haven't really announced anything in terms of specs or like when it'll even be released, if it'll be released. It's just sort of like kind of like brewing in the kind of the technosphere.
So how about the iPad pricing?
Okay, so iPad pricing, on the
Right.
other hand, is kind of a breaking topic at the moment because when it came out, prior to the announcement, the speculation was that it was going to be somewhere between $800 and $1,000, and it was, it was a pretty steep price, and people were really concerned about it. Apple comes along, does the official unveiling, and says, okay, we're going to blow your minds. It's only going to cost you $499.
But there's a catch.
There's a catch, because the $499 model is not one you want, or you may not want, because it's limited in terms of what it can do. So, like, the pricing has kind of been an issue, because the models that people are probably going to want are going to cost them more. Like, the most expensive one is $829,
Right.
and which is, again, pushing up towards that initial estimate.
So my final question on the iPad is, if I get one that's in the $700 ballpark, because which seems like that's the one most people are going to get,
Yeah.
can I use it like a computer? I mean, if I can't effectively use it as a computer, then I don't really know why I bought it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it does a lot of things that a computer can do, but in a lot of ways, it's just sort of like an enlarged iPhone, if you've ever used one.
Yeah, but why would I want a giant iPhone?
Well, it's the viewing space, because, I mean, they're pushing a lot of, like, web browsing and media kind of functions to it, so video viewing and browsing the web. A lot of people aren't really happy with the really small screen that the iPhone offers, so they're kind of saying, okay, well, now we're going to give you this bigger screen, and it's more of a computer than a cell phone.
Right.
And it kind of like blurs those lines a little bit.
So the real technophiles out there are really going to want to go after this iPad.
Personally, as a techie, I am interested in it, but I kind of see it as the beginning of a cool product, but not quite there yet. When people ask me, should I go out and buy an iPad, I typically say, you're probably going to want to wait until the second generation or the third generation, because by then you'll see lower prices, more features, and like just kind of an overall kind of like a more solid, more diverse product.
Oh, look, I'm nobody's fool, okay? And here's what I'm not, is a guy who spends a lot of money. So I always wait for things to drop dramatically in price. I'm like, oh, that iPad's cool. I'll buy it in 3 years when it's like a third of the price, right? I just bought a TV the other day.
Oh, yeah?
No, I'm kidding.
Well, because the last time I was here, we were talking about 3D TVs, and you were like, I am not dropping the money on that.
Right. So, okay, real quick, let's do Zune phone, too. So since we're on phones, what's a Zune phone? Never heard of
Okay,
it.
so the Zune phone has been a long kind of fabled device from Microsoft. When the iPhone was announced, it was kind of funny, because the CEO of Microsoft, Steve Ballmer, says, like, nobody's going to want to buy a $700 phone, because at the time the iPhone was really expensive. And, that does everything a computer would do. Nobody would really want to use that. And then as the iPhone pretty much came to market dominance, like, their story slowly changed. He was like, they started being like, okay, well, it's something we're kind of, exploring. And a lot of that speculation was the Zune phone, which, of course, is Microsoft's media player, Zune. It's basically their answer to the iPod.
Right.
So basically what the talk is now is that next week at the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, Spain, Microsoft is finally going to take the top off of the Zune phone, which would be like basically their answer to the iPhone.
You know what? I think they're all screwed, because, and this is obviously an incredible layman's perspective, right? But how much better could it be than the iPhone? I don't think it could be that much better. And the iPhone already dominates. It's already simple, and it's already so far out ahead that I just don't see these guys catching up.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like the argument everyone sort of faces with Apple products in general. It's like, what if the iPod is the undisputed king in terms of sales, and it is. In terms of the media player market, why would anybody else want to make anything to combat it? And honestly, it's just about market diversity. I don't think anybody really has the ambition of overturning the iPod at this point. I mean, obviously that's a goal, but I don't think it's a realistic one that a lot of companies really consider. So in the case of like something like the Zune phone, I think again they're trying to just sort of like tap into the market who likes the iPhone but isn't quite ready to go with all the kind of premiums attached to it.
All right, and we promised Alienware, so just tell me real quick, what is that?
I just reviewed this a very cool little laptop from Alienware, which is owned by Dell. And so it's basically the world's smallest gaming laptop. It's got an 11-inch screen, so it's super tiny. It's kind of hard to visualize, but it weighs only 4 pounds, and it can run all of pretty much the state-of-the-art games at full high definition, and you can watch HD movies and all sorts of stuff on it. And it's ultra portable. You can take it anywhere.
That's so crazy that there's a specific laptop out there for gamers. Like, I never thought that was possible, or not possible, but I didn't think people actually did that. But they actually remodeled that, didn't they? Because the first edition of the Alienware laptop was kind of bulky, and it had a really bad battery life.
Well, the Alienware laptop range, because they make a multitude of different devices in terms of like, you know, what's in them, what they can do, has always been sort of like a desktop replacement, not necessarily something you can, you know, play on the go or use on the go. It's more of just something you can take with you and set up somewhere and plug in. But if you know you try to get any battery life out of it, it would just drain it in moments because it's that powerful of a machine. It was bulky and it was heavy. This is like, you know, the first attempt at something truly portable, something you could take anywhere, use on an airplane, and get like reasonable amounts of battery life out of it.
Here's my final conclusion on tech guys. They have too much time on their hands.
No, come on.
And no. And that's why they, like this one, like we made this as small as possible. And the iPad we made as large as possible. Like they're just trying to cover the whole range, and they're like, oh I got, I'm gonna make it smaller, right? So okay, all right. So it is what it is, and I'm sure some people will enjoy it.
It's such a give and take. You know, you make things bigger when people need it. You need it smaller. Like it's all about, you know, kind of giving consumers what they want.
I hear you. And Scott, you've been great. Scott Lowe from IGN. Really appreciate your expertise.
No worries. I'm glad I could help.
All right, we'll be right back.